not only in words, but in the whole manner of his life. I suspect that's what moved us in hearing the presentation of Tony Blair, the whole manner of his life. Communication is more than the expression of ideas and the indication of emotion. At its most profound level, it is the giving of self in love. Great actors or actresses become the characters they portray, and their performance is convincing, not because they know the lines, or where to move, or how to project, but because of that identity that they have achieved. In his article, The Four Truths of the Storyteller, found in the Harvard Business Review, Peter Guber debunks the myth that the great storyteller is a spinner of yarns that amuse without being rooted in truth. Rather, he says, great storytelling is always, always built on the integrity of the story and its teller. Speak plainly. A play makes its impact through the power of the words and actions communicated by the actors. The language of theater needs to be crisp, punctuated with images and resonating with feeling. Abstract, theoretical, disembodied language has little place on the stage, or for that matter, from the pulpit. Sometimes I sense that in our efforts as church to be clear, to articulate the truth, we fail to use language in our communication that engages. People get lost in verbiage and concepts that leave them cold and unaffected. At the recent synod in Rome on the Word of God and the life of mission of the church, one bishop from Africa told a story about a priest in his diocese who was expounding on the gospel in his homily. He was going on and on when he noticed that a woman in the congregation was beginning to cry. He thought he had really touched her heart. After Mass, as the people were going out, one of the ladies who had been in tears came forward, and he said to her, "Ma'am, I noticed when we were having the homily that you began to cry. Obviously, I must have touched your heart deeply." She looked at him and said, "Well, not really, Father. As you were going on and on, I lost you entirely in your words. But as you were speaking, all I could think about was my dead goat. And when I looked up and I saw your goatee," well, of course, he was devastated. People live and move in a concrete world in which they hope to find some deeper meaning. The church holds that meaning, but you see, it must be communicated. The church publishes many documents, issues many statements, gives so many talks. Few are memorable, just as few plays become classics. Yet at times, the church has been a masterful communicator, speaking powerfully to a particular moment in history. At those times, the church spoke directly to the needs of the time and in a manner that grasped the moment. Remember Paul VI before the United Nations. No more war. War. Never again. Truth became embodied in simple words and gestures that moved hearts. What makes the church's message impactful is when, like in good theater, the message is communicated crisply, succinctly, colorfully, and punctuated with images. It is communication that speaks to people's lives and experiences. We may not like the soundbite world in which we find ourselves today, but it is our modern technological world. And if we are going to engage the world, we need to speak with powerful images and metaphors that capture people's imaginations and that take advantage of the reality of the short attention span. Communio et Progressio tells us a communication must state the truth. It must accurately reflect the situation with all its implications. The moral worth and validity of any communication, however, does not lie in its theme or intellectual content. The way in which it is presented, the way in which it is spoken and treated, and even the audience for which it is designed, all these factors must be taken into account. The perfect communicator, Jesus Christ, spoke from within, that is to say, from out of the press of the people. He preached the divine message without fear or compromise. He adjusted his people's way of talking and to their pattern of thought. And he spoke out of the predicament of their time. President Barack Obama communicates well. He uses stories, speaks to individuals' struggles and hopes, and communicates feelings. He gets you to listen, even if you might not agree with what he is saying. He confronts issues directly. He moves into conflict rather than avoiding it. He accentuates the positive with a message of hope that inspires. That is certainly Tony Blair's message to us, a message that needs a hope that inspires. You see, we need to grow more comfortable and skilled in the church in communicating our message for a world that has little patience for the abstract, theoretical language that we are accustomed to speak. The help of the round table can be very beneficial in this. Communio et Progressio says people today have grown so used to the entertaining style and skillful presentation of communications by the media that they are intolerant of what is obviously inferior in any public presentation. It makes no difference whether this is a religious occasion, such as, for example, a liturgical ceremony, a sermon, or a religious instruction. Archbishop Timothy Dolan took New York by storm because he smiled. He spoke the language of the Big Apple and related complex issues in understandable pictures and images. He was one with the people. He spoke of eating from every corner food cart in Manhattan. He articulated church teaching not in theoretical language, but through images and stories. Peter Guber suggests that the storyteller, communicator, must enter the hearts of his listeners, where their emotions live, even as the information he seeks to convey rents space in their brains. Our minds are relatively open, but we guard our hearts with zeal, knowing their power to move us. So although the mind may be part of your target, the heart is the bullseye. To reach it, the storyteller, communicator must first display his open heart. I suggest that that is exactly what happened this morning. Let's look at the issue of